Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Remote Control Sports. It's been a few days since we've done an episode, but the fact remains we need your help. We need you to like and subscribe before we get into today's video. It's right down there. It helps us out so much. On today's episode, we're going to discuss the NFL draft, what went right, what went wrong, and that's really it. That and the Jameis Winston trade to the Saints. That's all we're going to talk about. Really simple. On today's show, we've got Dylan Domang,
What's up?
Richie Solaris,
Howdy.
and the big germ, Jermaine Kelly.
How's it going?
All right, let's roll the intro. All right, welcome to the show, everyone. Like we said, Jameis Winston is a New Orleans Saint, and we're now joined with a Saints super fan, huge supporter of the show, our friend Logan Graffia. Logan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Long time coming. We're looking to get some more people on the show. If you want to be on the show, let us know. We needed to have Logan on the show today because of the Jameis Winston trade. So, Logan, let's start with this. You are a big opponent of the trade, and I'm just going to let you have the floor. I'm going to let you – none of us are going to argue with you. I want to know your thoughts and why you are not a fan of it. I'm going to let you have the floor. Go ahead.
Well, when I first got the news that we signed him, I woke up, it was like 8 in the morning, and I thought somebody was just messing with me. So then I went back to sleep for a little bit while longer. Then I woke up, it was actually true. Then I was really upset because I'm like, of all people, why? Why Jameis Winston? He is horrible. And I know Jermaine doesn't agree because we argued on Twitter earlier as well as I argued with you, John, about this. But it's just like, ever since he came into the league, except for his rookie year where he made the Pro Bowl, I just always thought he was not great at all. I mean, I don't see why do we trade up, draft a quarterback, trade away a pick for next year, and then sign somebody like Jameis Winston.
Okay, but
I think that's hard.
Why not Jameis Winston? What specifically about Jameis Winston?
He is not a great decision maker. 30 interceptions. That's more than Peyton Manning through his rookie year. And it's the 7th most all time. I mean, it's not George Blanda numbers, but I mean, it's still 30 interceptions.
Look, and I think that's a good point. Now, everybody can jump in on this now, but you're not looking at Jameis Winston as this year. You're not looking at him for this year. You're looking at him as the quarterback of the future. And I would argue outside of those first 4 quarterbacks that went in the first round, Jameis Winston is the best quarterback on the market aside from Cam Newton, who you're not going to get.
I mean, honestly, if anybody, I would love to see the Patriots sign Cam Newton because, I mean, they must have a lot of faith in Stidham because, I mean, I know I don't. I mean, I think we should have taken a shot at Cam Newton at least. I mean, it's a shot in the dark. I mean, both quarterbacks were stars, but Cam Newton's a former league MVP. That's the only difference.
Well, here's the thing I'll say with that. So, Cam was a star. I mean, he was an MVP. He's not going anywhere to be a backup. Cam is going to go somewhere and start. And even if he were to go somewhere to be a backup, which you would never do, it's going to take a lot of money. Jameis Winston turned down a much more lucrative deal with the Steelers to come to the Saints. It's a great move for both parties. Jameis Winston gets to sit behind one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time and watch. Look what that did for Teddy Bridgewater, who just got a monster deal with the Panthers. And then for the Saints, look, the Saints needed a true number 2 backup, all right, because they still need to use Taysom the way they're going to use Taysom. Cam wasn't going to come for cheap and to be a backup. Jameis is the best. Now, I will definitely cede you. His decision-making is the problem. 30 interceptions, it's bad. But at the same time, 30 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. That's not bad at all. He came here on a cheap deal. He'll sit for 1 year, and one of 2 things happens. Either Drew Brees retires and they sign Jameis Winston. Jameis is the quarterback of the future. Or Jameis leaves after 1 season. And what's the problem with that? All right, if you don't think he's a future of your franchise, fine. You had a good, solid backup quarterback who I would argue is better than Teddy Bridgewater, maybe even a better backup than Teddy Bridgewater was. He comes in for 1 year on a cheap deal and then leaves. There's no downside to this, in my opinion.
Yes, and I want to say this because you look at Drew Brees in 2006. There's no way that you would take 2005 Drew Brees over 2019 Jameis Winston. That's what people have to remember about this, is that Drew Brees was no one wanted Drew Brees. All right. And so for you to take the upside with Jameis Winston after what Drew Brees has become, I don't know why you wouldn't. Because at the end of the day, there's no one better walking through that.
Now, we had only two choices back in the day, John. It was either Drew Brees or Dante Culpepper. So it's just like, it kind of worked out.
Well, part of that is because the Saints were awful. Nobody wanted to go to the Saints.
It worked out, thank God.
Yes, but it worked out. That's what I'm saying. That offense is built for guys who throw the football. Drew Brees threw the foot. We want to you look. Drew Brees is great, but you want to know why he has all the records? Because he throws it 50 times a game. That's exactly what Jameis Winston did last year, and he's going to do it again when he gets a chance to play for the Saints. They're going to put up 35 a game.
And I'll say this too: if you want to make the comparison from Jameis to Drew, the Saints gave Drew Brees his second chance. He was coming off of shoulder surgery. He wasn't phenomenal. He was good, but he was a starter coming off a big injury. He got a second chance. Jameis has been healthy. He's shown that he's got talent, but he shows that he's prone to mistakes. He's getting a second chance here in New Orleans too. I'm not saying he is the next MVP starter for the Saints, Hall of Famer, they win 5 Super Bowls. I'm saying that this is a good business decision for both parties involved.
All right, Logan, I'm going to let you have the floor again here because you're shaking your head a lot. So you've already said why you don't want Jameis. I want to know who you want because Cam Newton was not coming through that door. First of all, yes, we've got the obvious out of the way. He's not a backup. He does not want to be a backup. But 2, he doesn't fit what the Saints do.
Now, it's not so much about like who else is there, but it's just like, I guess it's just kind of like it's who was available, and I guess Jameis was basically the only good backup available out there. So I guess that makes sense for both sides.
I think you have to look at it like this. This is Drew's last year. He's basically confirmed it. You're not looking at a quarterback now. You're looking at a quarterback in 2021. I want to know who you wanted to be that quarterback because they're not getting Trevor Lawrence either.
Well, no, I know.
I'll answer that one for Logan. Logan has been talking about he wanted Cole McDonald this whole time for New Orleans. He would probably rather have Cole McDonald over Jameis Winston. Drew Brees is 41 years old. He takes one hit, he's out. Unfortunately, that's how it is. And you want Cole McDonald to come in?
No, I said I wanted Cole McDonald over Tommy Stevens. I didn't say I wanted Cole McDonald over Jameis Winston. That's different.
You've been talking about Cole McDonald before they went get Stevens.
I talked about.
In his defense, though, no one saw that coming.
Yeah, in my defense, though, when we traded back into the draft, I'm like, maybe we're getting a running back. Maybe we're getting more defense. Tommy Stevens. Wow.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill 2.0. The same player.
I was telling my dad, like, he lost his job to a freshman quarterback this year. I'm like, holy smokes.
And real quick, I will say one more thing about the whole Jameis Winston thing. If he does leave after this one season and signs a pretty good big deal, guess what? That's a compensatory pick in the draft for the Saints next year. We know what Sean Payton can do with draft picks. It's a win-win.
My whole thing is in every Saints fan who is against this, I don't know who's coming through that door that's better than Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, and I like looking at it like this because it was right after the draft. Jameis Winston probably, because of the promise with Tua and Joe Burrow, is the 3rd best quarterback in the draft this year from what he's done in the NFL. So you're getting the 3rd best quarterback in the draft there as a steal to be your quarterback next year.
You know what's going to be sad? And it would happen, like, so say Drew Brees gets hurt for a few games or he has to sit out for a few games. You know, not saying it's going to happen, but say that does happen. And Jameis Winston comes in and loses a game. Every Saints fan will be pissed off because they would say, well, Teddy Bridgewater never lost us a game. And it has probably nothing to do with that. But it's going to be so aggravating if that ever happens. because
look at the points the offense scored in the games Teddy won.
exactly.
They didn't.
There was only one
That's
good
one
game
other thing.
against Tampa. That was his one good game where they put up, what was it, 31 or 35?
Yeah, wow. They put up points against Tampa. Who didn't?
And they put up points against Chicago too. They had a pretty damn good defense.
I'll give you that. But at the end of the day, the
You look at
potential with Jameis is so much higher than anything else out there.
Yeah.
I would argue the potential with Jameis is higher than Cam Newton. And I really like Cam Newton, but he is so up and down with he's either really good or he is he's not a starter.
Yeah, I don't really know if Jameis is going to start. Maybe next year he'll get a starting job somewhere else. I don't know if it's going to be with us. But, one of my friends made a good point on Twitter earlier with the comparison with Teddy and Jameis. Teddy was a better game manager than Jameis. Jameis Winston's a better playmaker, but I would prefer a playmaker. A better game manager than a playmaker, because with a better game manager, I think you're gonna get less mistakes, and with like a playmaker, you're gonna get a lot like of forced throws, interceptions, stuff like that, which Jameis does throw a lot of picks.
I have a problem with that because everyone likes to throw around that term. Oh, he's a game manager. Alex Smith is the prototypical game manager. Any starting quarterback in the NFL is a game manager. There are some quarterbacks who are much better under pressure and under those conditions where they make better decisions. I said Jameis Winston doesn't always make the best decision. But if you're a starting quarterback in the NFL, dude, you're a game manager. I just have a problem with that term because it gets thrown around way too loosely.
And here's another thing that I think should be pointed out is the Buccaneers had to throw the ball 50 times a game last year because their defense couldn't get a stop. If you throw the ball that many times, you're going to get picked off sometimes. He threw a lot of them. I'll give you that. But he's not going to throw 30 interceptions again. I just don't see it because if he gets to that point, he's not on the field anymore. I think that the Saints really found their quarterback for the next decade with Jameis Winston.
Jermaine, you're a Saints fan too, and you've been kind of quiet this whole time. I kind of want to hear what you think.
Well, I obviously disagree with you. It's
per usual. Everybody always disagrees with me, even when at the channel y'all disagree with me. But go ahead.
No, dude, it's a really good signing. It's like a player of that caliber who put up those type of numbers in that type of system with Drew Brees, learning from him and learning from Sean Payton and Pete Carmichael, dude. It's only going to help him. He can't just after this year go and throw 40 interceptions. It's so good in Tampa. He wasn't playing behind an offensive line that the Saints have. The Saints have potentially all pros that can be on that offensive line for the next year. We have a running game, which they didn't have in Tampa. They didn't have a rusher over 1,000 yards in Tampa last season.
Tampa's running game was awful.
Yeah, and they didn't have a defense. Like John said, they had to throw the ball. We have a good defense. We can mix in some runs, some play action. We can do that. It's only going to help him, dude. It's a good offense. It's a good system for him. And he's young. He's younger than Cam. So.
Okay, I'll take that.
There we go. All right. Well, Logan, we want to thank you for being a good sport and coming on and letting us know what your thoughts are. Again, Jameis Winston is a Saint. We will pull this footage in 2 years when we find out if Jameis Winston's any good. Logan, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you for having me.
Again, we want to thank Logan Graffia for being with us. Again, Jameis Winston is a Saint. Now we move into what was supposed to be the only thing we were going to talk about today, the NFL draft. I don't know if you heard that it happened, but it did. Let's talk about, before we get into specific team grades and who won the draft, who lost the draft, everything like that. Let's talk about what we thought of the draft itself in terms of a presentation standpoint. I just want to say, before the draft started, if you asked me my opinion on Trey Wingo, I say, yeah, I like Trey Wingo. He's fine. I hate Trey Wingo now so much. He is so annoying and tries so hard to be funny. We get it. You're cool and hip with the kids, Trey, with the jokes. Shut up. I was so done with Trey Wingo by the 16th pick, and then I had to do 2 more days of it. I did not like Trey Wingo on the draft at all. What were your thoughts?
Dude, I felt bad because he was talking to himself, basically in that studio. And he was trying to make stuff up and try to be funny. and he would try to go to things, and it's so funny because he would try to go to promotion videos and stuff like that, and they wouldn't have it yet, or go to a pick and they wouldn't have it yet. He's like, well, not doing that. It was kind of cringy. It was really cringy.
I just there was one point in particular, I don't remember what it was, but Louis Riddick and Daniel Jeremiah were kind of going back and forth on one prospect. One of them thought he was a really good one. The other one was confused by it. It was a really good 30 to 45 second discussion. And then they got back to Wingo as the moderator to move on, and he has to make a joke. Just move on, dude. We get it. You're cool and hip with the kids. You know all the references. He was such a dad. He was such a dad trying to fit in. It was so ESPN in this day and age where ESPN is trying so hard to, market to that demographic. And he's wearing sneakers, which again, ESPN, cool and hip with the sneakers. I really hated Trey Wingo.
I'm just not crazy about that. I never have been. I am much more of a content guy. If I'm watching the draft, I want to hear about prospects. I want to hear about grading picks. I want all of that introspective information. That's why I love Daniel Jeremiah and Trey Wingo. Just, I know he's the host and he has a lot of responsibilities, but to me, he was just boring. Every time he came on, it's like, all right, I'm just going to go look at Twitter and see what Daniel's saying, or Ian Rappaport, look for trades. I just didn't care about what Trey was saying.
Yeah. I would have liked to see more Adam Schefter. I know that all he does is to announce trades, but I absolutely love when Adam Schefter is on the screen. The other thing, the big thing that we all and the whole world is talking about is the sense of insensitivity in terms of player tragedies. But my big thing was, it seemed like, and I know I'm just attacking Wingo, but God, he just seems so out of touch with reality. Because I remember, there was one guy, may have been Xavier McKinney, who he was talking about his tattoos, and he said he's been getting them since he was 6 years old. What are you talking about? He just seems so out of touch with
and
so much of the world.
And look, I'm all for overcoming stories. I know a lot of these. Every player had to overcome something to get to the NFL. That's obvious. But I think they really exploited a lot. And I know a lot of people's parents died or grandparents. That's an obvious thing. But there was a few things, and I'm not taking this away from any player or anything. But there was one moment in particular that was a reach. I think it was Laviska Shenault. Okay.
Yeah.
His player intro. He does like this, and he has all the dreads and all that kind of stuff. And they
like the reenactment. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So yeah. So I obviously don't have dreads, but so they're talking about that, and they said his dreads are in honor of his late father, when he passed away when he was 10 years old. And then that's kind of like it. They didn't go into any detail about how does the dreads symbolize that. It doesn't make sense. And that's kind of what they were doing the whole time. They were trying to make a story out of something that really wasn't there.
I remember when Cole McDonald got picked, because Cole McDonald has dreads, and they said they're in honor of former Hawaii quarterback Steven Montez. And I was like, I remember Steven Montez. When did Steven Montez die? He didn't die. He's just wearing dreads for him. And then my favorite one was Jake Fromm, who, a fun fact was, he grew up hunting and fishing. A kid in the South grew up hunting and fishing? How cool. How different.
Wow. This is sad.
I agree with you. I like to hear the overcoming stories. We talked about before, but you can't do too many of them, because then it starts to get repetitive, and it doesn't make those players as special as they would have been. And then when they start to reach, and then when they start talking about these players, their parents' drug addictions and things like that, that's just going a step way too far. We don't need to know that, especially when the players come out and say after, look, yeah, they struggled through this, but they're much better now, and I'm so proud of them. And you know what? That's great. Good for them. But that was none of our business.
But you and I were talking, John, and you kind of alluded to it too. When are we stop going to be impressed that these players played quarterback in high school, no matter what position they were? If you're the best player on the team, of course you played quarterback in high school.
Yeah. On your 5-5 high school team, you're telling me the kid who just got drafted to the NFL at wide receiver was a quarterback? Wow. Nobody throws it anyway.
Yeah, you put on their highlight reel. It's just them running.
Yeah. No, and the other thing I want to say is one thing they didn't do this year that I've really appreciated them doing in the past was they would show, as they're talking about their negatives, they would show videos of them just getting absolutely torched in previous years, and they didn't do that this year. And that was a huge missing piece of the draft to me. Was watching videos of like Joe Burrow just making awful reads.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the draft itself now. Obviously, we were all huge fans. Everyone in the world was a huge fan of the new draft setup. But let's get into teams specifically. Let's talk about our favorite teams first. How we're feeling about our favorite teams. We got the Browns, the Saints, and the Patriots for Dylan. Dylan, I think the Patriots were the most intriguing team of the draft. What were your thoughts on the Patriots draft?
I didn't like moving out of the first round. I think we could have dropped in any position there in the first round, and we didn't. I would have liked a pass rusher there, or we could have dropped. Like I said, we could have dropped anybody. Kenneth Murray, I think, was on the board at the time, and we traded out of the spot for there. It's so difficult because I want to be so aggravated, but we did address team needs. We drafted a kicker, and I wasn't happy that we drafted a kicker in the 5th round because we could have waited. And that was another big story. We traded up to players that were going to drop to our spot anyway. And that's what kind of aggravated me. We weren't drafting players that were coming off the board next. We drafted 2 tight ends, back-to-back picks.
Who were way down on the board, too.
I wasn't a big fan of that. I know it's a team need, but I wasn't a big fan of that. We wind up drafting 3 outside linebackers. And honestly, that D2 safety that we drafted in the 2nd round will probably play linebacker for us because he's a bigger frame and he has that ability. I don't see him as a true safety because we have good safeties in New England. I wasn't happy. I wasn't so mad about the whole quarterback thing. I was expecting us to eventually drop the quarterback, but it wasn't the end of the world. And I know Logan alluded to it earlier. I do want to see what Jeremy Stidham has. He never got a chance. I want to see what he has. We did bring Brian Hoyer back. Another option might bring Jacoby Brissett back. Obviously, if the Colts decide to keep Jacob Eason as their backup, Jacoby Brissett coming to New England might be, in there. So I wasn't too upset, but we did need to get wide receiver, and we did not. But I think we addressed some team needs that we did need.
You guys did go and get Brian Lewerke from Michigan State, which I don't know. We'll see.
We'll take it or leave it.
Michigan guys.
Michigan guys. Drafted a lot of Michigan guys. Yeah.
All right, let's go to the Saints now. Jermaine and Richie, the Cesar Ruiz pick at the time, questionable. And now you're both. I think the world is realizing, he's good just because he's an offensive lineman. What did you think about the rest of the draft? Adam Troutman and Tommy Stevens are the 2 that people are having issues with. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I like Adam Troutman. He's a big guy, has a really big frame, and Sean Payton's gonna find a way. And they said he's really good at blocking, so that's always a positive with the running backs that we have and the offensive line that we have. You said Adam Troutman and Tommy Stevens. 6'5", 225, and can run like a 4.5, 4.4. That's insanity. Bigger than Taysom Hill. And can actually has a good arm. I actually, before the Jameis news came out, thought that like he was going to be groomed and have a competition with Taysom Hill, but we'll just have to see how that plays out in the future. And we also got Zach Bond, who's going to come in and start immediately. I think he's going to fit in really well with DeMario Davis and Alex Anzalone. Good cover skill. And got Joe Bachie, undrafted free agent. I really like him. He has good he's a good run defender, but not too good in coverage, but hopefully he can improve on that. But I really liked what we did in the draft.
All right, Jermaine. Wait, Jermaine. You're being way too positive right now. I need you to be negative because
we're going to get to that with Richie.
All right.
Because I know Richie did not like Adam Troutman.
I don't have a problem with them. I don't like that they traded their entire rest of the draft for him. Hated that. But when you look at it, Jared Cook is good, but he's old. Josh Hill is not ever going to be a number 1 tight end. He's just not. So Troutman comes in, and he's a guy who they could develop. Maybe he turns into a number 1. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's a solid backup like Josh Hill. the big thing was Sean Payton said that they were super happy with his draft because the 3 guys they got before Tommy Stevens were all in their top 40, and they were super happy with that. So I don't like the amount that they gave up for Troutman, but I'm not against the pick.
Okay.
Cesar Ruiz, the more I thought about it, the better a pick it was. I even had him on my short list of guys the Saints might take, and it's not – I wasn't worried because of the lack of talent because he's the best interior lineman in the draft. I just thought that they would take a cornerback to pair with Lattimore. I thought that and linebacker was more of a need. I didn't want a quarterback. I didn't want a receiver. I wanted a cornerback or a linebacker. And honestly, I wanted Zach Bond so badly. In my mock draft, I had him going 28 to the Ravens. So to see him fall that far and the Saints trade up, I thought that was a great move. I love him. Extremely versatile, really good in pass coverage, 12.5 sacks last year. I think that's a great pick. And then Tommy Stevens, he's a playmaker. That's why Sean Payton picked him. He's not going to be groomed to be a quarterback or necessarily even to take Taysom Hill's spot. He's just a playmaker. That's what Sean looks for. Anyone who can, make some kind of nice play. Who knows? Maybe he makes a special team. Maybe he is Taysom Hill 2.0. You give up a 6th-round draft pick for him, so not too bad. That's a Sean Payton pick. It's what I would expect. All in all, I think they had a good draft. I definitely wouldn't give him an A. I would give him a solid B overall.
Okay, but here's what I want to know. You trade the rest of the draft to get the guy who was the number 1 tight end in the draft, who now you usually run 2 tight ends with Jared Cook. Now you have probably a tight end 1 on the other side there. You trade the rest of the draft that would be, probably practice squad guys, if not their fringe 53-man roster guys, and you trade that for a guy who you plan on solidifying your tight end position for the next 10 years. I don't know how you could, be upset with that.
Yeah, I'm not. The only thing, again, it comes down to the amount of draft picks, and it's not even that that they could have taken someone else. I'm not expecting them to take the next Tom Brady in the 6th round, but as much as Sean loves to move, draft picks around, I thought that maybe he would be able to package 1 or 2 of them to a team and be able to build on next year's draft, because that's going to be really important when Drew Brees retires. So, again, I think Troutman's a good pick. I just think they gave up a little bit too much for him.
All right, for the Browns, for me, it was a story of steals, really. I mean, Jedrick Wills should have been off at 4. Grant Delpit should have gone in the 1st round. Donovan Peoples-Jones was 4 years ago the best wide receiver in the country. He goes in the 6th round. And then we got the kid from LSU. I don't know who he is. I don't think he's going to make the team. If he does, he's a special teamer. And the Missouri kid is, I don't know, situational. But the 3 there, Donovan Peoples-Jones and Wills and Delpit, those, I mean, what the Saints do with Ohio State is what the Browns are doing with LSU and what the Raiders are doing with Clemson. So, no, I am very excited from a playmaking standpoint because Peoples-Jones really does have a chance to be very, very good. He was in a terrible situation at Michigan with Shea Patterson. Let's get into specifics now because we've been going on a long time. I want to know. Let's go around with Jalen Hurts first. I just want to do a quick discussion on him. The Eagles pick him, and my take on it is that Jalen Hurts at Alabama, they say you can't play quarterback. He says, no, I can play quarterback. And they're like, no, we don't think you can. And then he goes to Oklahoma. He says, I can play quarterback, and I'll show you. And everyone else says, I don't think you can. He goes to Senior Bowl. He says, I can play quarterback. They're like, no, I don't think you can. He's like, let me show you. And he does. And now he's in the NFL. And again, he says, I can play quarterback. And the Eagles basically say, no, you can't. We're going to put you at wide receiver. Because this is the worst case scenario for Jalen Hurts. He will be a forever Wildcat quarterback for the entirety of his career. And I'm not a huge Jalen Hurts guy, but I feel so terribly for him because he's being blackballed as a quarterback. He's being blacklisted as a quarterback.
No, it's really is sad. And I think with Carson Wentz, He's had a lot of injuries in his career already, his short career. I think that if he has another season-ending injury, I know they paid him a lot of money, but if he has another season-ending injury, I mean, Jalen Hurts obviously gets that starting job. If you see how he does at that point, and if he's successful, he might become the Eagles' starting quarterback, and the Eagles might just move on from Carson Wentz. I know second overall pick. I know just paid him a ton of money. But if he's not on the field and you have a backup that is proven can play that quarterback position, that's going to be your new starter. They're going to.
I don't know about that with Carson Wentz, because when Carson Wentz is healthy, he's really good.
Yeah, I put
really
him.
He's so much. Look, I don't know what Jalen Hurts is going to be in the NFL. I don't think that he's great. I think he deserves a shot to be a quarterback, whether that be as a legit. That's what I'm saying, though. Yes, he's going to be quarterback 2 there, but that's not why they drafted him in the second round. They drafted him in the second round to be a Swiss Army knife. Yeah. And I feel so badly for him because he's had to spend his entire career proving to people that he's not, and now here he is, and he gets drafted in the second round to be that. Look, I get it from the Eagles standpoint. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch next year, and they're probably going to be very successful in offense with Jalen Hurts, but no, he's not better than Carson Wentz. Even if Carson Wentz gets hurt, Carson Wentz, when he is healthy, is a top 10 quarterback in the league, and Jalen Hurts is not that. So, what was that?
They just signed Khalil Tate
Yeah, he's not making a team.
No,
he's not even. He might not even get to the preseason. I'm serious. He proved in his last 2 years. Look, you want to talk about guys moving positions? I think Khalil Tate is an extremely fun guy to watch, but the fact no one told him to move to corner is beyond me, because he's a tall kid with 4.4 speed. I don't get that no one told him that. But we're telling Jalen Hurts to move when all he did was win. I don't know. All right, let's get into our final thing here. So let's go biggest winner of the draft besides teams we've talked about so far.
Obviously the Ravens. I mean, we talked about it in a previous show that the Ravens really couldn't mess up. Mm-hmm. That the Ravens could have drafted anybody and it wouldn't have been a mess up. And instead what they did is they just added more depth and more skilled players on their team to make them even better. I mean, the first round pick, they go get a position that they need in Patrick Queen. Mm-hmm. The linebacker is going to do really well for them. Then, obviously, I mean, Mark Ingram's getting a little older, but, to pull him off every now and then and go get J.K. Dobbins, it's going to be great. Then you got James Prochet, the 6th round? The guy that people had him rated super, super high. Mm-hmm. They filled team needs. And that's the biggest thing I've seen is that the players that Baltimore went and get, one, it was players you heard of. It was players that fit their system. It was players that are very skilled, and fit everything they wanted to do. I think the Baltimore Ravens had a perfect draft for them, for a team that really couldn't mess up.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jermaine.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Chargers. The Chargers had a really good draft, not only because of Justin Herbert, but in the later rounds, they got Kenneth Murray, who was still there. A guy who can cover sideline to sideline. He's going to fit really well in that defense. And with like Derwin James, Bosa, and Ingram, and they filled their running back. Cole Melvin Ingram left and went to Denver, I think it was. They got Joshua Kelly out of UCLA, who's a really good back. And even in the 7th round, got KJ Hill. Like, put him alongside Keenan Allen. I don't know if he'll start right away, but he's gonna make some noise in the preseason and obviously gonna make the team. I think the Chargers had a really, really good draft this year.
Dude, to me, it's the Dolphins. I mean, they rocked out. Obviously, they got Tua, which was the very smart play. All right, then they go and get Austin Jackson, an offensive tackle, right? They get Noah Igbenata out of Auburn, so another cornerback. Then come into the 2nd round, take Robert Hunt, another offensive lineman out of UL, so you're solidifying that offensive line. They took who was the safety they ended up taking in the 4th round? I forget his name. They also took Raekwon Davis, defensive lineman out of Alabama, and then they ended up taking another guard, Kinley, out of Georgia, solidifying that offensive line. They've got their quarterback of the future that they don't have to rush back and into starting because they still have Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think that they are building a team to finally compete. I think that they've got everything. As long as they don't rush Tua back, the Dolphins are going to be dangerous, man. They're going to be competing with the Bills and the Patriots.
And see, what I have to say about that is it's going to take years before this draft class gets to prove if this was a success or a fail. Because again, you have Tua, which we don't know what's going to happen with that situation yet. No one knows how exactly that's going to pan out, and when he's going to start. People talk about giving a medical red shirt, for this year. Then you got to take.
Well, that would be stupid because you don't have to.
Yeah.
If they file the paperwork for that, I don't know who's doing that, but in the NFL, you don't have to do that. I hope someone's telling the Dolphins that.
Yeah,
that's only in the NCAA. I don't know if they.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do that.
But Austin Jackson is a guy that struggled last year. Needs to get his strength back. After donating a bunch of bone marrow, wasn't really strong. Needs to get that strength back. The guard from UL could be really good, but he needs to adjust to the speed of the NFL because he dominated in the Sun Belt. Great, but now you got to dominate in the NFL. That's what you drafted that high for.
All right, but you can make that. I hate that small school argument. Look, if you're 6'3" and you're 300 pounds, you're fine. All right, you have to adjust it. This SEC thing. Oh, he's used to it because he played in the SEC. You know how many undrafted SEC players there are? Just about as much as anyone else. Look, I hate that argument. The other thing I want to say about the Dolphins, I think the Matt Breida trade was odd. I feel like they could have gone and got J.K. Dobbins, who is, young and does about the same thing as Matt Breida. That's the only thing I didn't like about that. I was going to say DeAndre Swift, but he was off the board by the time they picked again.
I think for a first round pick, it's perfect.
I get that, but I don't know. I don't know. I think that's more risky than going after Dobbins there.
But the way I look at it is they have an experienced running back who they know is a good talent compared to, running backs coming out of the draft. J.K. Dobbins looked really good, so did Jonathan Taylor. But I think, anytime you draft a running back, it's a risk because you don't – I mean, you could say that about any player, sure, but look at so many of the top-tier running backs that haven't panned out, like Darren McFadden, like Trent Richardson's a big one. So you look at those guys and, a lot of talent, but you don't know if they're going to pan out compared to Matt Breida, who if he's healthy, he's going to be a good running back. You're building this team now. I think it's a smart move.
Mine was the Broncos. I don't know if they'll be any good, but they will be fun to watch, man. I think that, if you're just going off, Drew Lock doesn't really have an option. I don't know if they're going to be able to stop anybody on defense, but man, they are going to be fun to watch on offense. Real quick, because we're going really far. Losers of teams we have not talked about yet.
It's the Packers. The Packers were a game away from the Super Bowl, and how do they help Aaron Rodgers by taking their future starting quarterback?
I just want to say that I called, and by the way, I won.
Yeah, we didn't say that. Dylan did win our mock drafts. He had the most correct picks. So good job, Dylan. I had 4.
Your 4 came early, very early too.
And see, I had what 9 or 10, but my problem was I got the right teams, but the picks were wrong because I was doing all the trades, so they still went to the right teams, but the picks were mixed up. Anyway, no, so they go and take that, and you can make the argument for, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. Okay, you know what? I kind of get that. They've got another pick. They can help them out. They take a running back who's going to be the third-string running back. Aaron Jones is a monster, and you take a running back who isn't going to see the field. They didn't give Aaron Rodgers any help at all. A game away from the Super Bowl. Secondary got torched. Their run defense was abysmal. They don't have a great receiving core, and they take a quarterback and a backup running back. Packers lose.
Yeah, and they didn't pick a wide receiver all draft. Jermaine.
Richie basically just stole my argument.
Okay.
Who knows how many years? I mean, he's not as old as Brady or Brees, but who knows how many years Aaron Rodgers has left? And
what shocked me was he's older than Favre was when they drafted Rodgers. That blew me away.
Yep.
Yeah. And the NFC is only getting better. And it's going to be so tough to make it through the playoffs, especially in this new format with more teams. You got to get that guy some help. I mean, you have a good team, but you got to get your superstar quarterback some type of weapon in the draft.
Dylan?
I want to go to the Seahawks, and it's not that they lost super bad, but it's just that they didn't fill team needs like they should have. The first round pick was an inside linebacker from Texas Tech who probably was the third round graded pick. There were so many other linebackers at the time they could have got. They didn't address secondary needs at all. They got one receiver in the 6th round. And Russell Wilson needs, more help. Obviously, offensive lineman, they really didn't address much. We all pretty much in our mock draft had them taking a defensive lineman. A lot of us had Ross Blacklock, who they did not go with, and that's a position that they needed. And they didn't take a position like that. He wound up falling to the Texans, I think. So I think it's not that they truly lost. The team's still going to be good, but they could have done so much better.
Mine is one that's going to pan out over a few years, and it might just be because it wasn't a very attractive draft. I thought the Giants were weird. They picked just like an absurd amount of offensive linemen, which all draft, that's all they talked about was Dave Gettleman loves offensive linemen. And I know that, and this is a thing that I hate is saying, oh, that's not the way the NFL is going. But God, at some point, do something different. I mean, they picked so many offensive linemen. I wish I looked up how many it was. Them and the Falcons. I thought the Falcons, it was such a Falcons draft because they just reached like crazy with everyone. So yeah, that's the NFL draft in 2020. We're filming this on Sunday night. It'll be up. Probably you're watching this on Monday or Tuesday or whenever you are. But final thing, The Last Dance episodes 3 and 4 tonight. I don't know if everybody's going to be watching, but expectations for tonight's Last Dance.
It's going to be entertaining. Narrating it, so it should be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm excited with the whole Dennis Rodman thing. One of my favorite ESPN documentaries is The Bad Boys with the Detroit Pistons, and he comes in there, and obviously the way his personality comes into play, especially when he went to the Chicago Bulls, things can be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I have very low expectations for this Dennis Rodman episode because I don't know if I want an hour of Dennis Rodman. I really don't. He's a very polarizing guy, but do I care about Dennis Rodman? Because man, he's had a lot of stuff happen to him. Do I care? Because I remember I watched an E60 thing about him, and he's had a very, very tough life.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is, things that he's done to himself. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. I think it's going to be a tough watch tonight. So I don't know. I think this is going to be my least favorite episode tonight. Richie, we're going to quiz you next show on The Last Dance. Will you watch it tonight?
I don't know. I will most likely Google the answers.
Very good. All right. So again, we want to thank Logan Graffia for being a great sport and coming on the show today. Hopefully we'll have some more interviews this week. Don't know when we're going to be back. Hopefully some cool things happen in the sports world so we can discuss them. We're almost to May. Sports are almost back, everybody, so stay strong. Make sure you're liking and subscribing. It's right there, right down below. It helps us out so much. Make sure you're following us on social media, Remote C Sports on Twitter, Remote Control Sports on Instagram, and we're also on Facebook. You can listen to the show anytime, anywhere on our Anchor and Spotify pages. So with that, everybody, thank you guys for the support so far. We actually have over 1,000 total views, which means nothing in the world of YouTube, but it means so much to us. So thanks so much for that. Also, good luck to our friends Chasen Virgil, Devontae Williams, and Isaac Adiemi Berglund now that the NFL draft is over, and hopefully they'll get picked up by some teams soon. So we'll see you soon, everybody, and have a great few days.